You're listening to Your Magical Midlife. This podcast is for women who are seekers, dreamers, and unconventional thinkers. If you're a Gen X woman who's always walked your own path, but now feel like you've lost your way, listen up. I'm Kate Higgins, your host. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and coach, and I'm here to guide you back to yourself and to help you reconnect with your joy, your passion, and your purpose. Midlife knocked me sideways. I was not prepared for all the challenges that piled up one by one. Everything in my life felt like it was imploding, including my health and my sense of self. By the time I hit 50, I was completely lost. But here's the good part. I'm finding my way, and so can you. I'll be dropping episodes every Thursday on everything from ambivalent aging, to body changes, to relationship shifts, to career challenges, financial fears, crazy family dynamics, and spiritual awakenings. Some weeks I'll be musing, some weeks I'll be ranting, and sometimes I'll have amazing guests who will share their expertise with you. Midlife brings a lot of change and a lot of challenges, but there's also so much magic to be uncovered. Let's dive in. Jen Rigley is the founder and visionary of Flourishing Over 50, an online community for women in midlife. Her passion and her mission is empowering women of any age to live an inspired, intentional, and joyful life. She's an ex-C-suite executive who left corporate America high and dry after a devastating layoff. Now she uses her business know-how and compassion to lead female entrepreneurs to rediscover their voices and launch their businesses in their 40s, 50s, and beyond. We met in the Pro Age Alliance, and she is an amazing woman. She is highly sought after as a speaker and has been featured in the Empower Her Summit. I'm so thrilled to have Jen on this podcast. How are you today?
I'm really great. I'm so excited to talk with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. So tell everyone who doesn't really know you that well or doesn't know you, what is Flourishing Over 50 all about?
Yes, and I'm so happy to talk about it. So Flourishing Over 50 is really what I call a movement to inspire and support women in midlife. I'm primarily talking to women who have in their 50s, even 60s, 70s, and 80s. I have women in the community.
So it's an online community.
It's an online community I also do a keynote presentation around the country to different groups and have a healing journey for women in midlife. So workshops and things like that as well that are in development.
That's so cool. How did you get into this work?
I had been through some kind of a high amount of challenges that many of us face really when we hit midlife. But for me, the work I do is really also grounded in grief and trauma that has built up over time. It started when my dad died when I was 10. And then when all of a sudden I hit midlife and had multiple things I call it a vortex. It happened at once in terms of my mother passed away. I was laid off from my job as an executive and then was diagnosed with breast cancer. And all this kind of came at one time. And I reached a place of what I would call really deep despair. And I realized that I was the only one that could really get myself out of this. And then I went on a process for several years, kind of get myself out of that. And then one day I was scrolling through Facebook and I joined a group for women over 50 thinking, oh, this is great. We'll support and inspire each other. And I just saw post after post of how difficult life was and how they were so down and challenged and didn't like their body and didn't know how they were going to have a life after their kids left home. And it just hit me that we can do better than this. We can do a lot better than this. And so that day, I just was like, I need to reach out and I need to start helping some of these women.
Yeah. I had a very similar ping pong of a series of unfortunate events from between the time I was 48 to 53. I just turned 54 in January. So who knows what's coming next. But when I was 48, I moved across the country. I left my home of my whole life, which was positive, but also really hard. And then the pandemic hit, like right after I moved. I had left everyone I knew and followed my partner from New York City to Florida. Didn't know anyone. Then all of a sudden we were unable to do anything or go anywhere. And then my mom, who had struggled with alcoholism, and I knew that she was in kidney failure, but she got acutely sick and died during the pandemic. And I was with her for the last week in hospice. But I knew she was going to die eventually. I just didn't know she was going to die then. And then I got diagnosed a year later with ovarian cancer and had to have a radical hysterectomy, which I was not expecting it to be that much surgery. I went in thinking, oh, they're going to take out one ovary and I'm going to be fine. And then I woke up and she told me she had not liked what she saw when she got in there, and she took it upon herself to just take everything. And then as I was in my recovery, the 2 months I took off from my corporate job, which was a stale and dead end for me already, I was like, I need to do something else. I need to put the wheels in motion to help other people because I couldn't be the only one alone with all of this. And then I started doing this work, and I eventually quit my job. I took a voluntary layoff during a corporate downsizing. And then my dad got diagnosed with dementia, and he just passed away. So I spent like the last, the years between my mother dying and my dad dying, I was back and forth from Florida to Delaware every 6 weeks, managing my dad's care and wrestling with my very, very difficult father. So it's a whole thing.
And Kate, I just want to say one thing. So not only did I feel that, like, and that's how I kind of talk about the layers of like one thing after another. But one of the things that you said in there is, and who knows what's to come. And I feel like the work that we do, both you and I, is really helping lay the foundation, because you're right. We've been through some really challenging times, but we don't know what is to come. And so this is really important, what we're doing.
Yeah. And before we start sharing on our experiences with our mortality, I want to ask you, just because I'm new to this and you're a little bit ahead of me, I'm sitting in the quiet of, and I had very challenging relationships with both my parents for different reasons, but being parentless is such a strange thing, even though I've been an adult for a long time. Did you find that it was like, it's a strange loneliness when you realize you don't have parents?
It is a tremendous, for me, not just a feeling of loneliness, but it's kind of a whole change in who I show up as in life as a person. Because similar to you, although I didn't grow up with my father, but had a difficult relationship with my mother. And that still weighs very heavy on me, even though I've tried to heal that. But all of a sudden, you just always know or feel that there is somebody there. There's someone who loves you no matter what. There's someone that you could talk to if you really needed to. And to not have that,
Yeah,
I think is difficult.
Yeah, it's a really like strange, untethered experience. It's like, well, who do I really have? I have a partner, but I don't have like parent. It's a strange thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I'm sorry, remind me, when did your mom pass? You said
So she passed in 2018.
Okay, so 7 years this year.
Just a little bit after I had gone through my cancer diagnosis and treatment. And at the time, she wasn't, I would say, cognitive enough where I could share that experience with her. And that's a really good example. If you go through something very traumatic, that I wish I had, a parent to help me through that. But she just wasn't in a place for that. And then she passed away not much long after that.
I'm really sorry. It's so scary to get that kind of, so if you don't mind, could you walk me through your diagnosis and what happened and what treatment you did?
Yes. So I had gone on a bit of adventure on my own. So I talked at the beginning of this that I lost my corporate job, and that was a whole
What
didn't
kind of work did you do?
so I was a sales and marketing executive, and literally out of the blue one day got a call from my largest client, really one of the largest clients that my company had, that they were canceling our contract, just bam, out of the blue. And so that was a very, very difficult time. I had a large team that I had to try to find other places for in the company. We had layoffs related to that. And then after we kind of settled the team and did what we could from that perspective, it was my turn to be let go. So
Did
I
you
went
know
through
that was
the,
in the, did you know that was a possibility, or you were hoping they,
I knew, we all have our intuition. I knew something. I had a knowing when I saw the phone ring, or, saw my cell phone ringing. I knew that this was going to be something big and momentous. I just didn't know exactly what it would look like. But yes, I knew as soon as, the woman told me on the phone, I knew right then that I would get a job, soon. After that, I had looked around for what I wanted to do next. But one of the things that I did is I took a job working for Hillary Clinton. And so I had all these plans for a new job, new career, whole new thing going on in my life. And what we kind of all know what happened there.
like during her presidential run?
Yeah, yes,
Oh my God.
during her presidential run, yes.
Wow.
So I had kind of had a whole new plan in life, and then all of that happened, and so I was like, okay, what does this mean for me next? And at that point, then I was again off work looking for what I was going to do next. But then I started to make all my appointments. I got to get I got to do my annual exam and all of that. So for me, I had a breast cancer diagnosis, but it was just part of my annual exam. You go in, you do the mammogram. And again, I had a knowing when I was in the room with that mammogram because I had had several at that point. And the technician said, "Oh, look, I need to get another. I need to get another one. There's a little something on film or something." And I knew right then, like that's a little odd. I had a little ping, like, and then of course you just go from one thing to another. They never tell you right then. It's like, oh, you get a letter or a call saying you need to come back again. Okay, I'll go back again. And they don't say anything right then. Someone will have to read it and get back to you. And then I got a message, oh, we want to do a biopsy. Oh, wow, that never had that before. So when it the biopsy, and I could feel when I was in the room getting the biopsy that they knew all of a sudden there was like a change, and there was a change in the energy in the room. But it was the same thing where, thank you for coming in, and your doctor will get in touch with you. But I could feel it in the room that it wasn't gonna be great news. And then I did get the message to go in and see my doctor, and that was such a difficult time. And it's still just even thinking about it is, walking into my doctor's office, and of course you hear the words, "I'm so sorry," and then everything kind of goes black just a little bit. And then one up from there, I had early stage breast cancer. So that part was very positive. And I got treatment at one of the great institutions here in Chicago, had a partial mastectomy, radiation, and I am now 5 years out. So that's a little bit about my story. But I'll tell you, from the minute I was in at that mammogram and she said, oh, I need to take one more image, it changed my life dramatically.
Yeah, it is again, it's like another like lonely experience, because I remember being in my doctor's office and then she was like, well, she's kind of making a face. And I'm like, my doctor, I had just moved to Florida. So I found this doctor I didn't know very well. And she, had good ZocDoc review. And I was like, okay, well, she's supposed to be good. And I'd driven like an hour to see her. And so I'm like an hour away from my house. And then she's like talking about something doesn't feel right. I'm concerned about this. And I'm like, I have to drive home now. I guess I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Drive home kind of like a spaced out, you know?
Right. And you have that feeling like, why is everybody just going about their normal day? Like something's not right here.
Yeah. And trying to read a tech's face, like while they're doing an ultrasound on you or, you know, some kind of scan, and you're trying to read their face and they're like not looking at you. And you're like, oh, this is not good. They're not even looking at me. This is bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm laughing now, but again, like similar to you, I was incredibly lucky. They caught it so early. I only needed surgery.
Oh, well, I know you say only, but surgery
Right.
is traumatic itself.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think I processed a lot of the grief around my mother because my mother had just died. And so I never wanted my mommy like more than in those moments. It was
Right.
really something. It was really kicked up so much grief. So like now that I'm down two parents, I'm like, what's the next thing? Yeah. So now you stepped into this new work and you're supporting women. And do you have that the community itself lives on your website, or is it a Facebook group or?
No, so right now it's a combination of I have a Facebook page, Instagram, and then I just reach out to people directly. Sometimes I'll have groups together in Chicago. But I'm kind of working through what that actual community, other than in-person events, but what that virtual community will be. Everything is in flux right now. You know, I was really involved in one community and we've taken it completely off of Facebook. So I'm not sure as I continue to grow the community, we're a pretty small group right now. I'm going to continue to work through what it really looks like. But I can say I think the community is so important for all of us. So in my mind, there will be a localized component as well as obviously virtual, which we're all used to at this point.
Yeah. I think people are really craving in-person, face-to-face, heart-to-heart experiences. But
Mhm.
because of busyness, and we've all become, I think post-COVID, we've all become so used to everything being virtual. I mean, my whole business is virtual, and I'm trying to shift that a little bit because I feel like people really need that connection, especially, you know, we get more and more AI this and AI that and virtual this, virtual that, especially as Gen
Right.
Xers, right? We want to be like away from technology and filters. We want to see real faces and real people and be in real life. And I'm at least hopeful that we can shift a little bit in that direction.
I completely agree. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me what the community is about, who is it for, who are like what kind of women, you know, because there's not just one kind of woman in their 50s and beyond, right? We're from all walks of life. We're artists and we're corporate people and we're,
Mhm.
you know, new agers and we're moms or not moms, you know, like who are your ladies?
Yeah. So my ladies and the people, not only that are in my community, but that I interact with the most and that I want to bring into this fold are women in midlife. And honestly, we're getting to the point, you know, even beyond midlife as we grow into our 80s and 90s. But women who know there is something more out there for them and they're looking for it because there are a lot of women in midlife, and maybe that's where I was before I started all this, where I didn't for a while see the light. And so the community that I'm building, it's not necessarily focused on bringing somebody out of out of that despair and darkness when they can't yet see the light. It's women who are able to start thinking about, I like to call it imagining the possibilities for their life. So they've processed some of the grief and trauma because I do talk about grief and trauma, but I don't want to give it short shift. And I don't dive deep into that healing process as you would with the therapist or with someone who's offering workshops very specific to grief and trauma. That is something that I will partner with somebody on. But so women who are seeking more in life and knowing that there is more out there and are willing to put in some effort for it. And it might just be that they're in despair, but they hear me speaking and they're like, okay, if she did it, maybe I can. And they're willing to show up for their lives, for their loved ones.
Yeah. I think we get a lot of negative messaging, especially around the beginning of midlife, around, to me now 45 sounds young, but around 45, 46, 47, 48. I mean, you had a double whammy, and I want to talk about the first whammy first. Getting laid off from an executive role where you had worked so hard to get where you had gotten, that you had built your whole life up to that pinnacle, and you get let go. The message is, that's it. You're screwed. No one hires a woman. They're going to look at your resume. They're going to say, oh, she graduated college in the 90s, or in the late 80s or whenever. And they're like, you're unhireable, right? Once you're out of that game, good luck getting back in it. That's what everyone said to me. Are you sure you want to take this layoff? Are you crazy? You're 49. No one's going to hire you. And I was like, well, I don't care because I want to build it myself, but maybe that was insane, and people are like, you have a mortgage. What are you going to do? How are you going to do this?
So I think it would be great if you and I have a whole separate discussion just on that, because when this happened to me, 100%, and I was taking that in and I was feeling that, I was living that. And I can remember trying to get myself up for these interviews. And it was that very stereotypical. And I think I have a story I tell where, one of the interviews was with some young man and I just started sweating. I'm in the middle of a hot plant. I am sweating. I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? But also, the stereotypical where I'm meeting with, there's a 25-year-old woman across the desk from me. And what I can say though, is a lot of that was because I was holding that in. I was putting myself in those positions and I was feeling that. I was feeling what everybody was telling me. But after that, so not only did I launched this, but I also did go back to work full time for not only a great company, but the company that I work for does consult. I was a consultant, a contractor, and then supported other companies as part of that who were so thrilled with me and my work, and it completely changed my whole outlook on that. But I don't disagree that is the message. And
that's what the HR person said to me when I said I wanted to take the layoff. They're like, well, you weren't selected for the layoff because of your age. So you want to make sure that before you take the layoff, because we had to have most of your team, but we kept you, because you met certain demographic category. And you got to be really sure you want to take this layoff because it's going to be hard out there for a woman your age. I was like, thanks, Madison.
Yeah. Just what I needed to go out and do my own thing, right?
Yeah. But there is so much age discrimination out there, and it's a real thing, and people don't want to talk about it. And I don't consider myself old, and I'm sure you don't either, but you realize the world sees you differently, and it's very sobering. It's a very sobering thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just how the world sees midlife women. I was just wrapping up an article that I did today, and I talk a little bit about that, the messaging that we get as when we're middle age, whether you want to say over the hill, but in many cases, the message is, and I feel it sometimes, that we are invisible. You can walk down the street and no one bothers with you or looks at you but that's why we're here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I had gone to, last summer, I stumbled on another community, and I happened to be going up north for an event, and I found this retreat for women who it was called the Third Act, and I spontaneously signed up for it. And when I got there, I'm a clinician. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I was working at a corporate big managed care company that I took the layoff at, doing psychiatric reviews of, approving admissions basically, or denying them. And I got there and I was very intimidated because it was a room full of women like you. It was a room full of women who had been high up at like GM or some advertising agency or Coca-Cola or whatever. And it was all women who were trying to figure out either how to get out and do the next thing, or were being pushed out subtly or not so subtly. And it's true. Like, people assume when you're over a certain age that you're done, you're out of ideas, you don't know what's going on, the time is over, your time has passed by, and that's just simply not true, right? I've never had such good ideas.
Yes, I agree.
I feel like once I went through menopause, my brain came online.
That's powerful. That's super powerful. I can say from my own experience, I started in technology. I keep up with all the technology, but starting this kind of an entrepreneurship activity, wow, we are constantly faced with every day. It's what's new, what's different, and learning. And as an entrepreneur too, or especially as a kind of a solopreneur starting up your own brand, your own business, it is all about the idea, the creativity, what you personally bring to the table.
Yes.
So I completely agree. I never would have considered myself a creative person, but I created the brand from scratch.
And it's
So
beautiful.
all of those
By the
things.
way, it's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. The other thing that, and you have mentioned this in some of your posts that I've seen, AI is here and it's here to stay. And I've really dove into that. So that's a whole new area of technology that I had no experience with before. And I can talk about it better than my kids can. So.
Oh, wow. Tell me about that. Tell me about how you use AI as a woman in midlife.
So this is what I can say. Number one, AI is going to change the world. And we're starting to see that messaging coming out in the media. And I didn't really, okay, what does that mean? What does that mean? Like, it's going to help my kid, the kids write papers, what does that mean? But if you go out, have you tried ChatGPT yet? Have you done anything with it yet?
Yeah.
Okay. So the minute I went out there and I started doing some things and saw what it was giving back to me, I immediately understood what the power of this to change so many things would do. So using AI to support your business, using it to hone in your message or to better write some of the content, help you with ideas, all of that will change. So what could have taken months for you to do, let's say, for example, the type of businesses we're in, you're like, okay, I want to do a workshop on menopause or, whatever the topic might be. You could probably have that workshop outlined in, 15 minutes using AI. So things like that. But what it doesn't do is change your thoughts, your ideas, your creativity, how you narrow down the prompts to have it help you with what you already want to say. Because the other thing now that I know, and I've been into much, I can also tell when something has been written by AI and you're like, oh, like that's not where I want to go. That's not where I plan to go. So it is a fantastic tool that if you use it in the right way, will only advance you, help you move faster.
Absolutely. I use AI for tech advice because I'm not so techy. So I'll go in and I'll ask ChatGPT to walk me step by step on how to edit a reel or how to make an Instagram post that will be more appealing, or how to improve it. What word should I use? I ask it tech advice and social media advice. So I use it sort of almost like a tech coach and stuff like that. If I can't figure out how to do something, I'm like, please explain to me, like I was a child, what's the best way to make this reel look better or make this thing look better?
Right. And things like so you've come up with the idea, let's say for the reel, you've come up with what you want to say, but you might ask chat to, how do I make this more engaging? Or something like that, where it can take the expertise of someone who's been doing this for the past 10 years. Like you might have to pay, a couple $1,000s to take a course with that person. And it can just take what you want to say, what you want to do, and just pop it up that much better.
Yeah. At first I was really worried about like ChatGPT taking my job as a therapist or a coach.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized, and then I kind of had a little conversation with it because that's how big of a dork I am. It actually said to me, well, I have no human experience, so I can't really give that kind of advice. And I'm like, well, thank God. Well, I don't have any feelings, so I can't give, support around the fear of death. I'm never going to die. I'm a robot,
Yes, although I do think it is important that we do stay cautious about it. And there are the world we live in with today, there are guardrails around this and how it's being developed and managed, but not everybody likes to play by the rules. And so we will always, from here on out, have to be careful about things like AI. But yeah, right now it can be a tremendous tool.
Yeah. And I know this is completely off topic, but I want to just get your way in about this because you have kids and I do not. I would be really concerned if I had kids that were coming of age or in their early life, of them not ever really experiencing real life and being stuck in this virtual world. I have a nephew. He barely looks up from his phone. He's much more cautious than I was, or people of my generation, your generation, have been. I'm worried that he's not going to travel and he's not going to try things and he's not going to take risks, because he's just going to put on a VR headset and think he's hiking across Europe with a backpack like I did. I worry that he will think it's the same.
Yeah, I think there's good reason for that. And I think that, one of the things we can do is maybe show by example. So, take them on a little trip or whatever it might be. I think parents have a really, really hard job right now. I feel like I was on the cusp because my daughters are mid-20s to just barely 30. So we were just on the cusp of that whole, when do we get a cell phone? When do we not get them a cell phone? We were able to hold off for quite a while, but it doesn't seem like that's even an option anymore. But you just hope that parents are being thoughtful about setting rules and all of that. But again, on the other side, I know how hard it is. You come home from work and you're tired. So you might want them to watch the TV for a while. So it's not easy.
So does your community focus on things like, because the community I'm building will not, because I don't have children, but do you focus on supporting women who may feel that grief when their kids are launched into the world? Do you focus on the joy of becoming potentially becoming a grandparent? Do you focus on, obviously, like the joy of overcoming a cancer diagnosis?
Yeah, so I would say it's a little bit more general. However, I will say I do specifically like to talk to and about women that are empty nesters or becoming empty nesters, because that is it's a major issue. It's a major challenge to overcome. And we're of the age where we kind of put our lives on hold to take care of our children, even though, I've always worked full time, but still they were my number one. I would still, number one, who are you? I'm a mom. They are the most important thing in my life, but you have to realize that the best thing you can do is let them have some independence and do things on their own. And what I try to do is I try to shine the light on the fact that there is so much out there for us, but so many women, they have no idea. Again, when the article I was writing for today was about the fact that we don't even know sometimes what we like to do. We don't even know maybe what we like to watch, other than, I want to sit down and watch The Housewives because it's an escape. But if you really ask someone what interests you, what do you like to do? What are your thoughts on this? Sometimes we don't even know because we kind of set that to the side. So I talk a little bit more in general about the process of getting back to you and discovering who that person is now.
Yeah. I think like no matter what your life path is, your 20s or 30s, when you start hitting that perimenopause window, it's like a major wake up call of like you built a certain life and then you get dinged with it and you're like, do I like this life? Do I like who I am? Do I know who I am? Do I know what I want to do? I might live another 40 years, 45 years. Like, what do I want to continue like this? Do I like my partner? Do, do I like my house? Do I like my,
Everything is
yeah,
up for at least worth looking at,
yes,
thinking about, and plan for, yes, you absolutely are going to live another 30, 40, 50 years. So plan for that. And
yeah.
that may not be what happens, but just think about your life today. And are those the things that you want to carry forward?
After you are finished building your empire, what do you want for yourself when you're 75, 80 years old? Do you want to be living in a house? Do you want to be traveling? Like, what do you want? What do you see?
So I've done a lot of that work, and this is what I want to be doing. I've always worked. I love working. I love technology marketing. I love meeting women and communicating with people, inspiring women. So I actually don't see that changing at all, regardless of what my age is. I've already built things like global travel into this life. And I'm less about building an empire as I am about just bringing women along with me. So whether I'm here or not, there's a community here for women to support each other. So things like travel, new for me is that I have a grandbaby coming in at the end of May. So that's a whole new, that's a whole nother life change, new world. And I can only imagine that that's going to be an important priority as well.
Yeah. I think with the way that life expectancy has extended, I think very few of us, I guess if you figure it out right and you have a good financial advisor, you can figure out how to retire. But I'm actually not even interested in retiring because I feel like
Mhm.
now that I'm dumped the shackle of my dumb job, I feel like I don't even want to retire. I feel lit up and excited and like I'm creating something. And why would I want to be like, oh, bing, 65, time to stop? No, no.
And
I see working.
I completely agree. And what I talk about is as you're thinking about your life, or how do you want to feel?
Right.
So it's less about like, oh, I want to accomplish this thing. But when you wake up in the morning, how do you want to feel? How do you want to go throughout the day? What impact on whom do you want to have throughout the day? Yeah. And so if you're doing things that you really like to do, I think that's where it's at. It's less about, okay, I'm going to retire on this day and then I'm going to sit on the beach. But, someone might want to do that and that's fine for them. But it's finding about what do you want?
Yeah. I think a lot of us are not really interested in retiring. I think that we're waking up and being really creative and really excited and seeing there's more than just working until you get your gold watch and then going on a carnival cruise and that's it. And then what? Nothing. Dying? No. I think that
Right.
more like, oh, I'm going to plant a garden. I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to learn to paint. I'm going to learn how to write music. Whatever you're going to do, you have to keep creating.
And though those are also longevity levers, right? The community is just coming out to be really like the number one thing in terms of longevity. But staying active, it doesn't mean you're exercising every single day, but staying active, whether like you mentioned, gardening or walking around your neighborhood, things like that are all proven to be longevity levers.
Yeah. What has been the most surprising thing you've discovered about yourself at this stage of your life?
The most surprising thing, I would say the amount of resilience I have. I don't think I realized it until when I started kind of doing this healing work. The challenge is to really continue to move forward and heal properly in all the important ways. You have to look back at your past. And so all of a sudden I had this list or these stories of many things that had happened to me throughout my life that I'd never dealt with at the time. We were brought up to just, strong women. You didn't talk about
Walk it
issues or
off, cry
problems.
baby.
As I say, you just power through. So all the things I powered through, but that's also when I realized we've all had to do that. So just resilience in the face of a lot of challenges. And then being able to turn that around. The way you started off, as we started talking that, we don't know what's coming next. So the ability to turn the knowing that life is challenging and difficult, turn that into a knowing that, yes, these challenges are going to come, and they're going to come more frequently honestly, at this point in our life, but I have some tools to be able to face them. So I'm pretty proud of doing that work because it takes time. It's not easy, and a lot of people just don't want to do it.
Right. And now you're sharing that with the women in your community, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to drop your community in the show notes, and but tell everybody where they can find that and tap in.
So my website is flourishingover50.com, and the 50 is spelled out. So I have articles on there. I have some free resources. So that's a place to start. But I also post on Flourishing Over 50, both on Facebook and Instagram. And then upcoming in the future, I will have some workshops around kind of the Flourish journey for women in midlife, which follows a whole 7-step framework for how to go to, wow, is this kind of like you said, is this really, what life is, to being able to feel really good about where you are in life.
Fabulous. I will drop it in the show notes. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm so glad that we got to connect in the Pro Age Alliance, which is such a good community for women who are figuring out how to get out on social media. Because again, like, we're over 50, we're told again the algorithm doesn't like us, and I don't think that's true.
We're going to change that, right?
One 50-year-old at a time.
Yes.
I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. And I'm going to drop everything so people can find you.
Great. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you so much for listening to Your Magical Midlife. I'm Kate Higgins, your host. You can follow me on Instagram at Your Magical Midlife. And you can check out my offerings on my website, yourmagicalmidlife.com. I offer individual and small group coaching, as well as luxury retreats for women in midlife and beyond who are seekers, dreamers, and unconventional thinkers. You can book a complimentary discovery call in the calendar link in my show notes. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd appreciate it if you left a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or share this episode with a friend. And I will talk to you next week.